also want to ask you about the Senate. They passed that new funding plan for DHS last night. So talk to us about this resolution and then what the next steps are.
Yeah, I think a lot of Americans are still surprised that we are still in this government shutdown. Read 69 days later. This is a first step, but it is certainly not the finish line. What the Senate has passed is a budget resolution, not a full funding bill. It is the framework, in this case, allowing Republicans to pour tens of billions of dollars, $70 billion, into ICE and CBP, two of the more controversial agencies within the Department of Homeland Security responsible for immigration enforcement, essentially funding them over the next 3 years or until the president's term is over. The politics here are just as important as the policy. Republicans have pushed this through without Democratic support, using a process that is called budget reconciliation, which allows them to bypass the Senate filibuster. Democrats, meanwhile, drawing this line in the sand, saying that they are not going to support this, all of this dating back to that flashpoint that saw 2 Americans die at the hands of federal law enforcement in Minneapolis back in January. That is the standoff and the reason that we are still here. As for what happens next, this now goes over to the House, but again, it's not a final vote on funding just yet. Lawmakers still have to turn this framework into an actual bill. The president has given a deadline to Congress of June 1st, but a lot of DHS officials I've been speaking with are very concerned. They say there's a lot of days between now and then that the Department of Homeland Security will have to continue functioning without funding, and it's becoming harder and harder.
Well, your reporting from DHS officials is so revelatory, but also some of the sources within DHS. You've been talking to a lot of employees about what's going on the inside. What's your read out there?
Yeah, it is wild, Reed, to hear that the Department of Homeland Security is now scouring its offices for toner ink in order to print things. They're using the backsides of documents because they've run out of paper. Some offices don't have paper clips, some don't have staples. But, you know, if that sounds trivial, there are also some deeper crises developing within the Department of Homeland Security. We mentioned TSA earlier. They've seen more than 780 officers quit amid this past shutdown alone. At FEMA, the Disaster Relief Fund, which is really our bank account for recovery to natural disasters nationwide, is running dry. It is about to dip below $3 billion, which will put it in imminent needs funding. Every week, approximately 45,000 emergency personnel, firefighters, EMTs, and others miss emergency training because classes at the National Fire Academy and the Center for Domestic Preparedness have been indefinitely suspended. We've heard about travel cards not being processed at the Department of Homeland Security. Members of the Secret Service Presidential Protective Division, those Secret Service agents that are traveling with the president, who have had to foot the bill out of pocket. TSA says that its own travel has amounted in something like $5 million that has gone unpaid. And individual DHS employees are now having their credit scores hurt because they're not able to process those payment reimbursements. So it's really extraordinary to look across the department. The last thing I'll say is we have in less than 50 days FIFA, the World Cup, coming up. A lot of concern about a lack of preparation there and just an inability to coordinate between offices, not able to hire individuals who are in field offices to support that big event, even some of the routine information sharing and leaving critical gaps in coordination, and a big risk for cities that are going to host this big event coming up.
Major and deep reporting by Nicole Sganga, CBS News Homeland Security correspondent. Good to talk to you.